The cursed prisoner-Earth planet Cathala was quiet under its 3 moons. But inside the ancient temple of Zhoroth there was something that made everyone uneasy. In the center of the massive hall stood a tall alien woman, chained to the floor. Her silver hair fell over her shoulders like frozen waterfalls. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with anger, but with a deep sadness that had lasted for centuries. Her name was Lasara. She had been trapped for 300 years. Many generations of aliens had come to see her. Some came with curiosity, others with fear, and some with cruel laughter. But none could break her chains. The dark metal cuffs were not ordinary. They were created by ancient sorcery, cursed to remain unbroken forever. The chains hummed softly, glowing with dark blue energy. Written on them were runes from a forgotten language. Every time a new warlord rose to power, they tried to free her or destroy her to prove their strength. They used sharp blades, plasma axes, lasers, even the strongest alien machines. But every blade shattered, every machine failed. The chains stayed strong. Soon, Lysara became a symbol, not of hope, but of power. A reminder that even the strongest could fall and stay chained forever. The aliens called her the cursed prisoner. No one spoke to her. No one dared. Only the guards stood nearby, watching day and night, making sure no fool tried to test the curse again. But tonight was different. Far above the temple, in the dark sky, a small human ship burned as it entered the planet's atmosphere. It was badly damaged. Sparks flew from its engines. The ship twisted and fell, crashing deep into the alien forest. The next morning, news spread quickly in the city of Cathala Prime. A human has landed, the aliens whispered. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Some aliens respected them, many feared them, but most laughed at the idea of a human surviving here. What can a human do? He will be hunted down like a small animal. One alien merchant laughed in the market. Inside the temple, Lysara heard the rumors. Though chained, her hearing was sharp. A tiny spark of something unusual stirred inside her. For 300 years no one had brought hope, but the arrival of a human was different. Humans were strange, unpredictable. As night fell, the temple grew quiet. Only the guards remained. Heavy rain fell outside, tapping softly against the stone walls. In the shadows, a figure moved silently. Captain Ethan Cole, the human explorer, had survived the crash. His body ached, but his curiosity burned stronger. The aliens hunted him, but he managed to escape into the old city. There, he heard the stories about the chained woman, about the curse, about the unbreakable shackles. He had to see it for himself. Ethan slipped past the guards, careful not to make a sound. The temple was vast, with tall stone pillars and glowing crystals lighting the path. Ancient statues of alien gods stared down at him. The air was cold. Then he saw her. In the middle of the room, under a soft beam of light, stood Lasara. Her skin was pale but flawless. Her silver hair glistened under the moonlight, pouring through the cracks in the ceiling. The chains wrapped tightly around her wrists and ankles, humming softly. Ethan froze. For a moment he just stared. He had never seen anyone like her. So strong, yet so broken. Suddenly, her head turned. Their eyes met. Ethan took a step back, his hand on his small laser gun. But then she spoke. Her voice was soft, gentle, yet filled with power. "You are not like the others." Ethan's heart pounded. The air felt heavy. "I heard about you," he whispered. "And you came anyway," she said. Almost like a faint smile touched her lips. "I was curious." Curiosity is dangerous. Here, human. He looked at the chains, glowing softly around her. No one could break them. For 300 years, no blade has cut through them. Ethan glanced down at the old sword hanging on his belt. It was a simple iron blade, rusted, old, a gift from his father before his first mission. It was worthless in space combat, but somehow he had kept it. Lasara's eyes slowly moved to the sword. Her breathing changed. "May I see it?" she asked. Softly. Ethan hesitated. It's just an old family sword. It won't help." "Please," she whispered. He pulled it out carefully, holding it up. Her eyes widened. For the first time in centuries, there was true hope in her voice. That might be the one. The air grew colder. The chains pulsed. Ethan suddenly heard the footsteps of guards approaching. "Someone's coming," he said, stepping back into the shadows. "Go," Lysara said. "But come back." Human. As Ethan disappeared into the darkness, her eyes stayed fixed on the spot where he had stood. For 300 years, she had waited now. Finally, hope had arrived. The arrival of the human. Cole moved quietly through the narrow streets of the alien city. Tall buildings made of glowing stone surrounded him. Strange creatures passed by, some with multiple eyes, some floating in the air. They barely noticed the human hiding among them. He pulled his hood lower, trying to stay invisible. The news of his arrival had already spread. Alien soldiers were searching everywhere. The alien warlord, Lord Xyla, had ordered that the human be captured or killed. But Ethan had one goal in mind. He had to return to the temple. His mind kept replaying the moment when he saw Lysara. Her voice still echoed in his ears. She was not like anything he had ever seen. Trapped for 300 years, yet her spirit seemed strong, and the way she looked at his old sword made him wonder. Could this rusty blade really be the key to breaking her cursed chains? It seemed impossible, but something inside him believed it might be true. As night fell again, Ethan made his way back to the temple. The heavy rain helped cover his movements. The guards were fewer tonight, but still dangerous. Hiding behind the large statues, he carefully stepped closer to the center of the temple where Lysara stood. Her silver hair shone under the soft moonlight. The chains around her glowed faintly, pulsing with dark energy. She sensed his presence even before he spoke. "You came back," she said softly, her voice calm but filled with hope. "I had to," Ethan replied. "You said this sword might work, but why? It's just old metal." Lysara looked at the blade with great care. The curse on these chains was created by a sorcerer who feared simple things. Strong weapons, powerful machines, all of them fail, but a blade with no power, no history of battle, no blood. That is what can break the spell. Ethan was confused. Why would he fear something so weak? Because true strength is not always in power, Lysara answered. Sometimes it is in purity. Suddenly, loud voices echoed through the temple halls. The guards had discovered his entry. Bright searchlights flashed, and heavy footsteps pounded against the stone floor. Ethan quickly hid behind a large stone pillar. His heart raced. He couldn't fight them all. The sword in his hand felt light, useless against laser rifles. Lisp remained calm. "Go, Ethan, you must leave now. If they catch you, all hope is lost. I can't leave you like this." "You must," she said firmly. "The time will come. You will know when." The guards drew closer. One of them shouted, "Human, surrender now." Ethan took a deep breath and slipped into a narrow passage at the side of the temple. He barely escaped, vanishing into the darkness. Once again, outside, the rain washed over his face as he ran through the empty streets. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Lord Xyla received the report. His sharp claws tapped against the table as he listened to his soldiers. The human returned. "To the temple?" he asked with a cold smile. "Interesting. Perhaps this human is more dangerous than we thought." One of his advisors spoke. "Shall we increase security around the cursed prisoner, my lord?" Lord Xyla nodded. "Yes. Double the guards, and send bounty hunters. I want this human alive. I want to know why he is so interested in my prize." As the night deepened, Ethan found shelter in the underground market. There, a small group of alien rebels quietly approached him. They had been watching. They saw something in Ethan that gave them hope. For years, they had lived under Lord Xyla's cruel rule. Now, perhaps, this strange human might be the one who could finally bring change. One of the rebels, a young alien named Kira, spoke. "We can help you, human, but you must trust us." Ethan looked at them carefully. "Why would you help me?" "Because we also want to see her free," Kira replied, "and we believe you might be the key." The rain continued to fall as the group disappeared into the shadows, planning their next move. Far away, in the heart of the temple, Lysara closed her eyes and whispered softly to herself. Soon, the forgotten bladed underground hideout was small and dark, hidden beneath the alien city. Ethan sat with Kira and her small group of rebels. They offered him food and a place to rest. For a moment he felt safe, but his mind stayed busy. He kept looking at the old sword lying beside him. It was nothing special, just an old piece of metal his father had given him long ago. It had never seen battle. It was not made for fighting. Yet Lysara believed it could break the cursed chains. Kira watched him closely. "This sword, it's important, isn't it?" she asked. Ethan sighed. "My father gave it to me before my first mission. It's been with me for years, but I never used it. It's just a memory. Maybe that's why it can work," Kira said softly. "Sometimes, the things that are forgotten hold more power than the strongest weapons." Ethan wasn't sure if he believed that, but he knew he had to try. Lysara's hope had touched something inside him. He couldn't walk away. As they talked, a loud alarm suddenly rang through the city. Red lights flashed across the streets. Lord Xyla had released bounty hunters and patrols everywhere. Posters with Ethan's face appeared on holographic screens. "Wanted human intruder, alive." The rebels grew nervous. "We have to move you," Kira said. "They are searching every corner." Ethan nodded. "I need to get back to the temple. I don't care about hiding." "It's too dangerous now," Kira warned. "The temple is heavily guarded." "Then help me find a way in," Ethan said firmly. "I won't leave her there." The rebels agreed. Together, they planned a secret, the path through the old tunnels beneath the city. These tunnels were built long ago and forgotten by most. They led directly under the temple. It was risky, but it was the only chance. Late at night, under the cover of heavy rain, they began their journey. The tunnels were dark and wet, filled with strange noises. Ethan held the sword tightly. Every step brought him closer to Sarah. Meanwhile, inside the temple, Lord Xyla stood before Lysara. His cold eyes studied her. "Why does the human care about you?" he asked. Sarah stayed silent. "You've been my prisoner for 300 years, Xyla continued. "No one could break your chains. Not kings, not armies, not even the strongest machines. What makes this human so different?" She finally spoke, her voice calm but strong. "Because he carries something you fear." Xyla laughed. "That weak little sword. It's nothing." "You're wrong," she said. "The curse fears purity." and that blade is pure. Xyla's smile faded slightly. Deep down he understood the danger but refused to show fear. The human won't reach you. My soldiers will crush him. Below, in the tunnels, Ethan and the rebels reached a hidden door that led directly under the temple. But as they prepared to enter, alarms sounded again. The enemy had found them. They're here, Kira shouted. We have to fight. Blaster shots filled the air. Ethan fired his small weapon, covering the rebels. They fought hard but were outnumbered. One by one, Kira's team was captured. Only Ethan managed to escape into a narrow passage, carrying the sword. As he ran, he could hear Lord Xyla's voice through loudspeakers. Humans, surrender now, and I may spare your life. Ethan ignored him. He had come too far. He wouldn't give up. Finally, after crawling through tight spaces and avoiding patrols, he reached the lower chamber of the temple. The glowing chains above him hummed louder. Sensing his presence, Lysara looked down and smiled weakly. You made it. Barely, Ethan replied. Breathing hard, he raised the sword. Let's try this. But before he could move, loud footsteps echoed behind him. Soldiers poured into the chamber. Leading them was Lord Xyla himself, holding a large plasma weapon. Drop the sword. Human, Xyla ordered. Ethan stood firm. No, then you will die. Xyla growled. The tension grew. Lysara's chains began to pulse faster, reacting to the moment. The old sword in Ethan's hand started to glow faintly for the first time. It's working, Lysara whispered with hope, but Xyla stepped closer. Ready to strike. The battle for freedom had truly begun. The alien warlord's threat. Soldiers surrounded Ethan, their glowing weapons pointed at him. The air was heavy with tension. Lord Xyla stood in front, his tall figure blocking the path to Lysara. His cold eyes stared at Ethan with hatred. For a moment, everything was silent except for the soft humming of the cursed chains. You are brave, human, Xyla said with a cruel smile, but bravery won't save you. Give me the sword. Ethan's grip tightened around the handle. The old blade felt warm in his hand, as if it sensed the danger. He looked up at Lysara. Her eyes were calm, but her lips trembled. She knew how close they were to breaking the curse, but also how quickly it could all be lost. This sword doesn't belong to you, Ethan replied firmly. Xyla's smile faded. Then you will watch your friends suffer. He waved his hand, and a group of soldiers dragged Kira and the other rebels into the chamber. Their hands were tied, faces bruised, but their spirits were not broken. Kira looked at Ethan and shook her head. Don't give it to him. Silence, Xyla shouted, striking Kira across the face. Ethan's heart burned with anger, but he stayed calm. He had to think clearly. One wrong move could destroy everything. You can't stop what's coming, Lysara said softly to Xyla. The curse is afraid. It knows its time is ending. Xyla growled. Enough of your foolish hope. I've ruled this world for decades. I control your chains, your life, and now this human. He raised his weapon and aimed it at Ethan's head. Your journey ends here. At that moment, a loud explosion rocked the temple. Dust and fire filled the air as part of the ceiling collapsed. More rebels had attacked from above, trying to rescue their leader. Chaos broke out. Blaster shots flew in every direction. The soldiers were distracted, trying to hold back the sudden assault. Ethan used the moment. He rolled to the side, avoiding the plasma shot, and ran toward the altar where Lysara stood. The sword glowed brighter now. The cursed chains shook, reacting to the blade's nearness. Quickly, Ethan, Lysara shouted. He raised the sword high, ready to strike. But before he could bring it down, Xyla's clawed hand grabbed his arm. The warlord's strength was monstrous. He twisted Ethan's wrist, forcing him to drop the sword. It clattered across the stone floor, sliding out of reach. Xyla slammed Ethan to the ground and pointed his plasma rifle at him. Fool, you had one chance, now it's over. The rebels continued to fight in the background, but more soldiers arrived, slowly overpowering them. Kira, still tied, struggled against her ropes, watching helplessly as Xyla prepared to pull the trigger. But then something unexpected happened. One of the younger rebels, a small alien named Torin, crawled through the smoke and grabbed the fallen sword. He wasn't a fighter, but his courage burned strong. With all his strength, he threw the sword back toward Ethan. The sword slid across the floor, stopping right beside Ethan's hand. Xyla saw it too late. With a burst of energy, Ethan grabbed the sword and swung it upward, slicing through Xyla's weapon. Sparks flew as the rifle broke apart. The warlord stumbled back in shock. Lysara's chains pulsed wildly, glowing brighter than ever. The temple shook as if the curse itself was angry. Finish it, Lysara shouted with desperation. Ethan rose to his feet. His arm burned with pain, but his heart was stronger. He raised the glowing sword once more and took a deep breath. But before he could strike, Xyla charged at him again, roaring with rage. The battle was not over yet. The dangerous rescue Lord Xyla charged like a beast. His heavy claws swung toward Ethan with deadly speed. Ethan barely dodged the first strike, feeling the sharp wind as the claws sliced the air beside his face. The glowing sword in his hand felt heavier now, but he held it tightly. The cursed chains behind him pulsed with strange energy, reacting to every move he made. The rebels were still fighting in the background. Kira had freed herself from the ropes and was now shooting at the guards, covering Ethan from a distance. Torin, the small rebel who had thrown the sword, was helping others escape through the broken temple walls. Blaster fire filled the air as smoke rose higher, turning the scene into pure chaos. Xyla roared in anger. "You're nothing, human. I will crush you and keep the cursed prisoner forever." Ethan stepped back, trying to create distance. "You talk too much," he said, forcing a small grin. His body was tired, but his spirit was strong. He remembered Lazara's words. The sword needs purity, not power. He needed to stay calm. HFY attacked again. This time his sharp claws caught Ethan's shoulder, tearing through his jacket and cutting his skin. Ethan groaned in pain but didn't fall. Blood dripped down his arm, but his grip on the sword remained firm. He swung the sword at Xyla. The old blade sliced through the air, surprising the warlord. Even though the sword was simple, it moved like it carried a force greater than itself. Xyla jumped back, his eyes showing fear for the first time. "How can this be?" Xyla growled. "Because this sword is not like your weapons," Ethan said, breathing hard. "It carries no hate. It carries no blood, only hope." As Xyla paused for a moment, Kira shouted from behind, "Now, Ethan, do it." Ethan turned toward Lazara's chains. The glowing cuffs shook violently. Dark energies swirled around them, like the curse was fighting to survive. The temple floor cracked beneath his feet as he stepped closer. But suddenly, one of Xyla's soldiers fired a shot. The blast hit Ethan's leg, making him fall to his knees. The sword slipped from his hand again, sliding across the floor. "No!" Kira screamed, running toward him. XYLA laughed loudly. "You see, hope is weak." The soldiers closed in, surrounding Ethan and Kira. It seemed like the end, but then Lysara moved. For 300 years, she had not taken a single step, but now, with the curse shaking and weak, she gathered every bit of her strength. Her feet lifted slightly off the ground. The chains fought to hold her down, but cracks appeared in the stone where the chains were fixed. With a sudden surge of energy, she lifted one arm and screamed. Enough, the chains glowed brighter, struggling against her will. A blast of light burst from her body, throwing several soldiers back. Even Xyla stumbled, unable to believe what he was seeing. Ethan crawled toward the sword, his fingers stretching to reach it. Lysara's voice rang out like thunder. "Ethan, finish it." His hand touched the sword's handle. At that moment the blade shined with a pure white light, brighter than ever before. The energy from the sword connected with the chains like a powerful beam. With all his remaining strength, Ethan stood up and raised the glowing sword high. XYLA screamed and charged once more. But it was too late. The sword came down fast, striking the thickest part of the chains. For a moment, everything stopped. Then, with a loud crack, the cursed chains shattered into a million glowing pieces. The dark energy screamed as it was destroyed, fading into the air like smoke in the wind. Lys. Sarah fell to her knees, gasping for breath. She was free. The rebels cheered as the remaining soldiers ran in fear, seeing the impossible happen. But the battle was not fully over. Deep below the temple, something ancient and dark had been awakened by the breaking of the curse. The ground rumbled softly, as if a new danger was rising. The final confrontation's temple shook under their feet. Dust and small stones fell from the high ceilings. Everyone froze for a moment, looking around with fear. The chains were broken, but something else had been disturbed. Deep beneath the temple, an ancient power was waking up, the true source of Lysara's curse. Lord Xyla looked around, confused and afraid. "What is happening?" he shouted. Lys. Sarah stood up slowly, though weak her eyes were strong. "You were never the master here, Xyla. You only guarded my prison. Now you will see what true evil you served." Suddenly, a loud cracking sound came from the floor. A large hole opened in the center of the temple. From the darkness below, a glowing mist rose into the air. Inside the mist, a shadowy figure began to appear. It was the sorcerer, the ancient being who had cursed Lysara centuries ago. His body was thin and tall, his face hidden under a dark hood. His voice was cold and sharp like a knife. "Fools," the sorcerer whispered. "You broke the chains, but by doing so, you have freed me." The soldiers who had remained quickly ran away in terror. Even Lord Xyla stepped back, his usual confidence broken. Ethan stood beside Lysara, holding the sword tightly. "Who is he?" asked. "The one who cursed me," Lysara said softly. "He was trapped with me all these years, feeding on the curse. Now that the chains are broken, he can rise again." The sorcerer's eyes glowed red as he floated above the ground. "Thank you, human. Your pure sword broke the chains, but now I will take your soul as my first reward." Ethan's hands shook slightly, but he kept his ground. "Not while I'm still breathing." The sorcerer raised his hand, and dark energy shot toward Ethan like black lightning. Lysara jumped in front, using her remaining power to shield him. The energy struck her, and she screamed in pain but stayed standing. "You will not take him," she shouted. Ethan knew they couldn't win like this. The sword had broken the chains, but it wasn't enough to stop this dark being. They needed something more. Kira and the remaining rebels gathered around. Though afraid, they refused to run. Kira called out, "There must be a way." Lysara, tell us what to do. Lysara's voice was weak but steady. His power feeds on fear and despair. But if we stand together, if we show him no fear, his strength will fade. The sorcerer laughed. You think your little courage will save you, but as he spoke, the rebels stood closer, joining hands around Ethan and Lysara, their hearts filled with hope, not fear. Ethan raised the sword again. It began to glow once more, even brighter than before, fueled by their united strength. The sorcerer's red eyes narrowed. No, Ethan stepped forward. You've controlled her for 300 years. It ends now. With one strong swing, Ethan pointed the sword toward the dark mist. A beam of white light burst from the blade, shooting directly into the sorcerer's chest. He screamed as the light surrounded him, burning his shadowy form. The mist twisted and spun wildly, shrinking smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. The temple grew quiet again. The evil was gone. Everyone stood still for a moment, breathing heavily, unable to believe what had just happened. Lysara smiled softly and touched Ethan's shoulder. Thank you, Ethan, he smiled back. I couldn't have done it without all of you. Lord Xyla, now defeated and powerless, fell to his knees. The rebels moved quickly, arresting him and securing the temple. The long nightmare was finally over. Freedom and the truth. Morning sun rose over the city of Cathala for the first time in many years without fear. The battle was over. The temple, once a place of darkness, now stood peaceful. Rebels walked freely through the streets, taking control from the fallen warlord. The people of the city came out from their homes, watching with hope as a new chapter began. Inside the temple, Lysara stood quietly. For 300 years, she had been a prisoner, but now she could finally breathe as a free being. The cursed chains were gone. The evil sorcerer had been destroyed. Her long suffering had finally ended. Ethan walked beside her, still holding the sword that had changed everything. His arm was bandaged, his body sore from the battle, but his heart felt light. He looked at Lysara and smiled. You're free. She nodded slowly. Because of you, Ethan. Because of your courage and your pure heart. I only did what was right, he said softly. Kira and the rebels joined them, their faces filled with pride. We couldn't have done it without you, human, Kira said. You gave us hope when we had none. Lysara turned to face the people gathering outside the temple. Today, we start again. This world will no longer live under fear. We will build a new future together. The crowd cheered, their voices rising with happiness. For the first time in centuries, the people of Cathala were free from the rule of darkness. Later that evening, as the sky turned orange, Ethan and Lysara stood at the highest tower of the temple, looking over the city. The cool breeze brushed against them. Everything felt calm. What will you do now? Ethan asked. I will stay and help rebuild my world, Lysara answered. I owe it to my people. And me. Ethan smiled, half-joking. Lys. Sarah smiled back. You have a home here, if you choose to stay. Ethan thought for a moment. He had traveled through many worlds, always searching for something, but here, with these people, he had found something special. Not riches or glory, but purpose. Maybe I will stay, he said finally. They stood in silence, watching the stars appear in the night sky. The old sword rested beside Ethan, its job complete. Once just a forgotten blade, it had become the symbol of hope that broke an ancient curse. That as the stars shone brighter, Lysara whispered, sometimes the smallest light can break the deepest darkness, and with that, a new future began.